as NAT gateway. You can either use NAT gateway or you can also use NAT instance. There are two solutions that you can do. We'll compare both of them. Okay, so this is like, okay, I'll just copy this. I don't want to have a separate sheet for that. Okay, suppose I have a machine which is currently configured with IP version 4 and I want to connect that machine to the internet, then I can use NAT gateway. This is again the same exact thing. I can copy most of the notes here and I can just slightly modify. Okay, so this is NAT gateway and this is for IP version 4 traffic. And this is again a virtual router, allows outbound only, prevents inbound. Okay, this is all good. Okay, so NAT gateway, it is a fully managed service. It's a fully managed virtual router. What about NAT instance? NAT instance is something which is created by customer and customer manages this instance. Okay, so sometimes NAT gateway might be felt like it is very high cost and you are not able to manage that cost and so on. So sometimes people will go and create a NAT instance, which is a kind of proxy server you can create and you can manage it on your own. So sometimes if you want to kind of fully have control on what traffic is flowing and you want to have manual customization of the configuration on the port forwarding and so on, you can create the NAT instance by your own and do it. So the difference here is NAT gateway, it is a fully managed AWS solution. It's a virtual router. It is used for giving internet connection from your IP version 4 machine. And okay, so this one again, it's used for IP version 4 only. Okay, let me mute the line. Okay. Okay, so it's a managed solution. It's again a physical hardware appliance. Okay, it's a Amazon physical appliance. They actually have a physical appliance on the back end. For you on the front end, it's a kind of virtual router, but on the back end, they will use virtual appliance. The biggest thing is it gives you a lot of bandwidth because of the managed physical appliance. It gives you up to, I think, 45 gigabytes per second, but it depends on case to case. Even I think if you have asked for increase in request, you will have a kind of higher bandwidth. And the important thing, the maintenance, since it is fully managed by AWS, the maintenance of the infra is done by AWS itself. Okay, we don't have to worry about increasing or availability or whatever, right? So it's a kind of this NAT gateway. It is a purpose-built system, and it is not used for anything else. Purpose-built system means it is only dedicatedly used for NAT purpose, and it is optimized for NATing concept. Okay, it is not used for anything else. Okay, and here NAT instance is something which customer created and managed solution. So here you have to go and create a EC2 instance, and using that EC2 instance, you have to go and enable the NAT role or service, and you have to manage it with that. See, if I go and create one EC2 instance and use that as an NAT instance, maybe you might have a cost decrease. It might be very less compared to the NAT gateway, but there is a single point of failure. If that EC2 instance goes down, your NAT solution will come to task, or it might be impacted. So what we need to generally do, again, you need to create a cluster of servers. You have to create multiple servers or instances and combine them together, and you have to use scripts for monitoring and failover and so on. Okay, so it's very, very complex. So people in a very large organization or mid-sized to large-sized organization, they will not take that risk. They will definitely go for NAT gateway. It is a managed solution. You don't have to worry about high availability, failover, scripts, and other manual things. You don't have to worry about that. Even if you are going and using these things, you have to patch the system, you have to back up the system, you have to monitor it. A lot of things you have to do, right? So we are responsible for monitoring, backup, patching, and availability, alerting, notification. So a lot of things comes to our plate. So it's kind of, even we need to kind of upgrade the OS or whatever. Okay, so we actually take care of this. But most of the customers, they prefer cloud because they get something like as a service. Even some cases you get infrastructure as a service as the basic minimum one, right? Some people also look for something which is platform as a service. You get ready-made services. You don't have to manage even the operating system. That's what they generally accept or expect, right? So the biggest advantage of going with NAT instance, you can use this for multi-purpose. Some organization, they will also install the Bastion role, or they also use that as a jump server. They will also use that to configure for port forwarding and all those things. So since it is a kind of instance, you can go and add additional role. But adding additional role is not a good practice. So you will have a lot of services, and you'll have if one of the services is consuming a lot of memory or a lot of traffic, then the other service also will get impacted. It's not a good thing. But on the other side, since you have the control of the instance, you can go and add additional role, and you can use it for multi-purpose if it is a very small organization, right? At the end, so your NAT gateway, the purpose is to perform NATing, right? So the name itself, it's NAT gateway. It is going to perform network address translation. So what I mean by network address translation, see, for example, your EC2 instance will have a private IP, maybe like 10.0.0.10. So this is a private IP, right? When the internet website is being accessed, the internet website logs will not tell you like which private IP address access this internet website. This logs will tell you the public IP address of the NAT gateway. So there will be a public IP address on the NAT gateway instance. Okay, this NAT gateway will convert or translate the private IP to public IP, and it will access the internet. So whatever logs we see in the internet, it will have entries only for the public IP address. That's the way it does actually. It is the private to public translation. That is what they call it as network address translation. Okay, so it is for security purpose. Also, it is multi-purpose, right? You can have one public IP, and on the back end, you can have hundreds of machine accessing the internet. It helps you to reduce the number of public address we need to have. And also, you can definitely have a permanent public IP also. Okay, it can be elastic IP also. You can go and attach the elastic IP. And since it is a managed NAT gateway, you also have a clear visibility on what are the different traffic flow, and also you can integrate with CloudWatch for monitoring. Okay, you also have that facility and feasibility to understand what are the different traffic that are going through and so on. Okay, here definitely if the data is flowing outside of the internet, okay, then the data outbound transfer charges will apply. Since it is going outside of the region, it will definitely you have to pay for that. And so this will help you to kind of uh, help instances reach the internet. So any questions from anyone on this particular thing so far?
So in the NAT gateway, you just give the subnet range, right? Which has to be blocked or which has to be
Okay,
communicating.
okay, let me see if I have the slide here on the NAT gateway. So there is a important thing that you might also need to understand how things work in the NAT gateway. Let me see. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so you will have multiple subnet, right? In multiple subnet, the front end, the primary subnet will be the public subnet, and the NAT gateway will always reside in the public subnet. It will not be residing on the private subnet. It will be residing on the public subnet. But the instances which are on the back end, the database server, the application servers, and all those things, it will go outside to the internet using the NAT gateway, which is residing on the public subnet. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, I will quickly show you how to create a NAT gateway and associate it with that. So may I know your name? I think you are just shown as attendee. Okay, sorry, I think even I
Rajshekhar,
asked you.
sorry, I actually
Rajshekhar.
changed.
Okay, okay. No, no problem, Rajshekhar. That's fine. So let's go and see what are the other ways we can create. Yesterday I showed you how to create step by step, right? VPC, subnet, and route table and internet gateway. Today, I'll show you one more method of how to simplify the creation, right? So if you go and create manually, there might be some misconfiguration, or you might have to spend a lot of time. So there is a beautiful option that Amazon has given called Launch VPC Wizard. Okay, so even when you practice for the first time, you go and create everything one by one so that you can relate how things are interconnected and how you connect. So, but if you are familiar with all those things, in the production environment also, you can go with this Launch VPC Wizard. So if you go by this wizard, they give you different options.
Stanley,
Sorry.
I have a question. Sorry for
Yeah.
stopping.
Yes, Babu.
Uh,
Yes, Babu.
uh, we have a DHCP concept, right? Normally, we use a dynamic host configuration protocol to configure and give the IP addresses automatically for a lease 24 hours or like that. Do we have the same thing? Like yesterday, we set up the manual IP addresses and everything, right? So I had a question to ask about, do we have any such kind of configuration system?
Okay, I'll come to that. Okay, so there is an option called DHCP option set, and we'll also see what is the lease period and so on. Okay, you have
Oh,
some options, but see,
oh yeah.
yeah, you have that. But there is a lease duration also. We can go and check what kind of lease it is giving us. And in an on-premises, generally we have what you call 4 or 8 hours for your voice devices, and you might have some specific number of days for your data devices, meaning your desktops and laptops. You might have a specific 8 days or whatever lease based on the type of device, right? For voice devices, for voice VLAN, you might use 4 hours or 8 hours because it is a phone or it's a wipe device. So there are some differences. Okay, let me also quickly answer you some more thing. One second. Okay, one second. I'll just come to that a little later. But for now, let's continue with the VPC creation. Okay, if I go to the VPC dashboard, it gives me option to go and launch the VPC wizard. So it is giving me option whether I want to go and create just the VPC or the VPC subnet, right? So if I scroll down, okay, it says we have designed the new VPC. Okay, this is okay. That's fine. Okay, let's say there is another view also. Okay, I'll also show you that quickly. So you can go to the old VPC experience. That will be a little more interesting. Okay, I'll show you the other method. If I go to the VPC dashboard, so if I click on this launch VPC dashboard, it gives you 4 different solutions. Okay, so solution 1 is VPC with single public subnet. Solution 2 is VPC with public and private subnet. Solution 3 is VPC with public and private and hardware VPN access, and 4 solutions. So these are the 4 different solutions that organizations will use. If you are a startup, you will go and create one VPC with single public subnet, and you will have some web servers and a couple of maybe you will have 3 servers which will perform all the 3-tier architecture or the web server or the web application role. So this might be useful for a very small organization, and they will use that. Okay, let me create something. VPC scenarios. Okay, for a small organization or a startup organization, they might have a single VPC with a single public subnet. Okay, so that is the startup thing that most of the organizations which are a beginner, they will have all the instances or 2 or 3 instances in the public subnet, and they will allow access to that, and that is how it will help you to connect. Okay, and I'll tell you what exact restrictions and other things that are possible using network access control list and security group shortly. But this is mainly a kind of public subnet with within a VPC, and you will be able to access all the different services. And the next solution is the NAT involved solution. The next two are little advanced, where with larger organization or with some highly sensitive organization, you will not have internet connection at all. So there are some different solutions. I'll start with this one. Okay, the second one is mid-size organization. They will have a VPC with public and private subnet. Okay, so they will have one public and one private subnet. Okay, this is the common practice that they will have. And in this particular thing, you also have a NAT gateway sitting on your private subnet, sorry, public subnet. Okay, this is the important thing that you need to understand for the NAT gateway. So always the NAT instance or the NAT gateway that we create, it should reside within the public subnet. That is the practice we should implement, right? Being the basic one, right? The VPC with single public subnet or something like that. But now we'll go and create the second level of VPC implementation with public and private subnet. And when I go and select this option, it is giving me the option to change the CIDR block or change the CIDR block. Yesterday, I think we used 192 subnet. Okay, we can use the 10 subnet if you want. If you want 65,000 IP address, or if you want to reduce it, you can also go and do one more calculation and reduce the range here. So I will give this as a kind of Raj VPC or whatever, and I can give a name for the public subnet. So if you want to leave it as a public subnet, you can leave it, or I can just change it to Raj public subnet. And you can also change the name for your private subnet as Raj private subnet. Okay, so here it is asking me whether I want to isolate the private and public subnet into two different data center. So if you really want to do that, if you want to have a different environment, then you can do that. Otherwise, you can just have both of them in the same data center, so that the traffic between the public and private subnet, the web system and the app systems are happening faster. Okay, if you want to increase the range, you can also increase the range by giving /25 or the higher, sorry, by giving /23 or higher range. Okay, so here it is asking us whether we need to have a NAT gateway and whether we want to have a elastic IP attached to that. Meaning whether you want to have a permanent public IP. Yeah, we can just go and do that. Okay, so I can just go and create a elastic IP for our NAT purpose. I can go and attach elastic IP. Okay, I can just go and associate, and I can go and copy this. And I can also go and label this. This is for Raj VPC. This is NAT gateway. NAT gateway. Okay, I can copy this IP address and use this IP address here. Okay, perfect. So we can also verify 08C. 08C. Okay, perfect. 608C. And now it is also giving us option to select service endpoint and those things. I'll tell you what exactly that is later. Okay, for now, I'm creating a VPC with two CIDR blocks or two subnet. One is called public subnet and the other one is private subnet. And I'm also creating a NAT gateway with elastic IP attached. Okay, let me go and create this VPC. So this will help us to create everything in a kind of quick manner. You don't have to go and create one by one. Yesterday we created VPC and then we created subnet and then we created a route table, we created an internet gateway and then we attached to it. So we did step by step. But here, this wizard based creation, it will quickly create all the different things and it will help us to complete the setup within a few seconds or a couple of minutes. Okay, that's the advantage of going through the wizard based approach. So if you look at here, if I go and check the NAT gateway, it will start creating a NAT gateway now. See, it is pending. So it is currently creating that. So everything will be created on our behalf. And if you want to create a NAT gateway, you can just go and click NAT gateway and you can give name and you can select the subnet where you want to store it. Like you have to select the public subnet. Always remember, when you go and create a NAT instance or a NAT gateway, it has to be residing on the public subnet only. You should not create the NAT instance on the private subnet. Otherwise, you will not have internet connections. Okay, so I'll explain, I'll clearly show you how this works. Okay, let's cancel this. It's already getting created. So this is for the Raj. So you can see the connectivity type is public for the NAT gateway. NAT gateway should have public connection or internet connection. But the backend machines on the private subnet, it should not have internet connection. I'll show you the route table shortly. Okay, any questions from anyone so far? I know like network will be little new for some of the people, but we need to understand. See, what we have done is we have created a VPC and we have created two subnet, public subnet and private subnet. And I'm creating a NAT gateway on the public subnet that will act as a router for our internet connection. So all the connections to the internet outbound will be going through this NAT gateway or the NAT instance, whatever you want to deploy, you can deploy. So this NAT gateway will act as a network address translation to communicate to the internet, to connect to the internet. Okay, so let me put this here. Okay, whatever VM we have, so all these VMs will go to the internet through the NAT gateway. If you want internet connection, you have to connect it to this particular NAT gateway. So how do we do that? Generally, we direct the traffic using route table. Okay, so route table is what will say where exactly the traffic has to go, whether it has to go to the NAT gateway or whether it has to go to the internet gateway for reaching the internet. So yesterday we added one route, right? In order to go to the 0.0.0.0 internet, we need to go through the internet gateway. Similarly, today it will add a route to reach out to internet using NAT gateway. For these machines on the private subnet, there we have to add a route that will direct the traffic to internet through this NAT gateway. That is the important thing. So we will also have some machines on the public subnet. Those will be like web servers or some SMTP servers or some servers which need bidirectional connections will be created on the public subnet directly. But these are all something like app servers and database servers which are not internet facing, will be created in the private subnet and they will be secured into the private subnet. Here we might have the web server or the SMTP server or some servers which needs internet and those connections. Okay, let's wait for a couple of minutes. I think it should have created. Let's refresh. Okay, it's available. And you can see that the IP address is assigned and the NAT gateway will have two IP address. It will have an IP address on the private interface. See, there are two side of the connection, right? So here you have a private IP address that will connect to these machines in a private range. So this one will have a private IP. This private IP will be in what range? We created 10.0.0.0 range here, right? And similarly, we created these ones in 10.0.1.0, right? And if you want to connect these two machines, you need to have private IP address. So the NAT gateway will have two interfaces, one interface for the private IP address connection. And in order to connect to the internet, it will also have a public IP on the other side. Okay, that will help you to connect to the internet gateway. So it will have a public IP as well as private IP. These instances will only have private IP addresses only. So it will not have any other IP address. So let's go and check that. Okay, let's go and verify. So let's go and check the VPC first. So if you look at here, we can see that there is a new VPC that is created, and it is saying Raj VPC, and the CIDR block is 10.0.0.0/16, and you can just go and check the subnet. So you can see that there are two subnets created, Raj private and Raj public. So if you go and check the Raj public subnet, in that, if you go and check the route table, there will be couple of route entries. In order to go to the local machine, that is called as local route table. And for the internet, for the public subnet, it will go to the internet gateway. That is the important thing. Okay, for the public subnet, the internet connection will go through internet gateway. Okay, and for the private subnet, the internet connection will go through the NAT gateway. That is the two important things. Okay, for the public subnet, the internet route will be directing to the internet gateway. And if you go and look at the route table for the private subnet, it will be different. So the route table for the private gateway, private subnet, the local will be there, and for the internet, it will be going through the NAT instance. If I click on this, it will take us to the NAT gateway that was just created. See, this is the NAT gateway that just got created. This is the Raj VPC NAT gateway. Okay. So now, if I go and create machines in the private subnet, the internet connection will flow through the NAT gateway to the internet. See, that's how it is configured in the route table here, right? So all the machines that we are creating in the private subnet will flow through the NAT gateway, right? Let's go and do that. So I can just go to EC2. Okay, let me launch the instance. We'll launch two instances. Okay, the first instance we'll launch it in the public subnet, and the other one we'll launch it in private subnet. See, maybe if you guys are only familiar with Windows, you can use Windows as much as possible, but the performance will be little slow because they are giving you only one virtual CPU and 1 GB of RAM, right? But if you're good in Linux, it is very good. Okay, so see, if in the future it is becoming mandatory, you should have some kind of Linux skills. Okay, so in parallel, you can also try practicing Linux and Linux commands. See, ideally, like how many commands we'll have in Linux? Maybe like you'll have 400 to 500 commands, and out of which we'll only use 50 to 100 commands. So if you are practicing like one or two commands a day, you will be becoming very good in Linux commands or Linux management within 2 or 3 months. Okay, so just have a target and also practice Linux. So Linux skills is becoming very mandatory for the future. Okay, so if you are coming from a Windows background, try to make yourself familiar with Linux also. At least the commands that we regularly use and the VI editor that people use for editing the configuration files. Okay, it is very important. Okay, so you have to practice on Linux also. So here I have to select the machine on Raj VPC, and I'm going to create one machine on public subnet and one machine on private subnet. So here for the public subnet machine, I'll go and enable the private public IP address. And when I go and create the other machine, I will not give the public IP address. I'll show you how to access it. Okay, so I can just select the security group. This security group, okay, it is allowing access only from the security group. I'll just go and say this is for Raj public security group, and I will allow RDP from everywhere. Okay, review and launch. And okay, yesterday we created one key, right? Use that and launch it. So I have launched one machine on the public subnet. I'll also go and create one more machine on the private subnet. So when I launch the machine on the private subnet, I'm not going to provide a public IP for that because I have got NAT gateway. I want to verify the NAT gateway. I want to test the NAT gateway. Right, this time I'll go and select the Raj VPC. I'll go and select the Raj private subnet, and I'm not going to give the public IP for that. Okay, let's go and click next. Okay, so here I can just go and create a new security group, but I will allow access from a specific range. I can give the range of the private subnet. Okay, I want to access only from the private subnet to public subnet. I want to access only from this subnet to this subnet, even the RDP or whatever. So in general, what we will give is we'll give the jump server IP address range. Only the jump server will be allowed to access. Let me quickly go and check that. So under the subnet, I'll go and check the Raj public subnet range. Okay, it is 10.0.0.0/24. Okay, that's what we gave, right? That's fine. So this is for RDP from the public subnet VM or from the jump server. Okay, you can specifically give the jump server range also. This is Raj private security group. Review and launch. Okay, so okay, that's fine. Okay, I think we can generate the key. If you want to copy the key, you can also copy that. Okay, let's give it a couple of minutes. So what I've done is I've created one machine on public subnet and another machine on private subnet, public VM1, and I've created one more VM on Raj private VM. Okay, so the public VM, I will be able to communicate from the internet because it has got internet, it has got public IP. I'll be able to connect to that. So in order to connect to that, okay, it's still initializing. Okay, let's give it 1 or 2 minutes. See, if you want to create a NAT instance, okay, have you guys created a NAT instance? So what you can do is you can go to the instance here. When you go and launch the instance, go to the marketplace and search for NAT instance or search for NAT. Okay, it will give you a lot of different NAT appliances or NAT instance. Okay, you can just select some specific operating system, or you can just go to community AMI. Also, you'll see a lot of NAT appliances. You can select this. So this instances will already have the NAT role installed or the NAT role pre-configured. You can go and select that and deploy it also. So you have, if you want to deploy your own NAT instance, you can deploy from the listing here. If you want to use some specific operating system, it has given primarily Amazon Linux is giving it, but there are around 340 AMIs which has got NAT. Okay, if you want to use some specific other operating system like RHEL or SUSE Linux or whatever, you can select that. So this is the NAT instance which you can create, and after you create the NAT instance, you have to use that NAT instance AMI ID for routing the traffic. Instead of giving the NAT gateway IP address, you have to give the NAT instance ID. So here in the Raj private subnet, instead of giving the NAT instance NAT instance ID, NAT gateway ID, you have to go and edit the NAT routing, and you have to give the what you call NAT instance AMI ID. Okay, so that is the thing you need to make sure you modify. So if you are creating your own NAT instance, NAT every EC2 instance will have its own ID. I think you have seen that, right? If you go to EC2, every device, whatever we create, everything will have a instance ID. Okay, so this is the unique ID that Amazon is assigning. They call it as Amazon unique ID, right? See, every machine will have its own unique ID. So in the routing table, you need to go and provide this instance ID for the NAT instance to redirect the traffic to the internet. Okay, instead of providing the NAT gateway device, you have to provide the NAT instance ID. I'll show you maybe quickly. If we go to VPC, maybe I'll also show you the practical demo also. So if I go to the route tables, so here, if I go and edit the route, okay, so here you have to, okay, this is what you have to give. You have to give the NAT instance ID. So not the IP address, you have to give the NAT instance. You have to select instance and you have to give the instance ID, the public VM or the NAT instance VM ID, and you have to give whatever internet traffic it has to go through this specific NAT instance. That is what you have to give as a kind of difference. Instead of NAT gateway ID, you have to give the NAT instance ID. Okay, so let's give it a minute. I think hopefully we will have the EC2 instances ready by now. Hopefully I'll be able to connect to this. Yeah, 2x2 checks passed. I'll go and generate the credential. I'll get the password. This is for the download desktop by March 22 decrypt password. So this is the password for my public VM. Okay, let me connect to that first. Oh, that is for the private VM. Huh? Okay, for the public VM. Okay, this is my password for the public VM. Okay, so let me try to go back here, copy the public IP address. I'll take the RDP now. So think this as a jump server. Even you might also have the jump server in this particular public subnet. You might have the bastion server or the jump server or whatever you call it as. So those servers also will be residing on the public subnet, the jump servers. So here I will have to give the administrator name and the password for the public subnet VM. Okay, once after I connect to this, I'm going to connect to my private subnet VM. See, private subnet VM doesn't have a public IP address. You cannot connect to that directly. So you have to connect to a jump server or a system like this, and then only you will be able to connect to the system which doesn't have a private public IP address. Okay, let's give it a minute. It will load and will also be ready. See whether I will be able to connect from the public subnet to the private subnet using a private IP address. Will I be able to communicate by default? Yes or no?
Yeah, you should be able to because it's
Yeah,
a
there
part
are
of this
two
one.
route, right? There are two
Yeah.
route. One is the local route, then there is a public route. So within the entire VPC, you have a local route configured. So you'll be able to communicate within the private or public subnet. Within the particular VPC, the entire VPC range of machines will be able to communicate. That's the first entry in the route table, right? If you look at the route table, the first entry shows that, and the second entry is for the internet connection. So definitely we will be able to connect to the machines on the secondary subnet. But if in case we are not able to connect, we can go and check the security group and the network access control list. So I'll just go and copy this and let me go and connect it from here. See, I'm able to connect to the machine from the public to private. Even we have allowed that RDP only from that range. Okay, I'm able to connect to the IP machine of machine from the private subnet with the private IP address. So generally we will log into the jump server and from there only we will be able to connect. This is how we generally connect. Okay, let's wait for a minute to load. So you guys are following me, right? What I have done is I've created two machines, one machine on the public subnet. This is acting as a jump server. I have logged into the jump server using public IP address. And from here, I'm connecting to one of the machine on the private subnet. Okay, I'm RDPing, or if you are a Linux system, you're just going to do a SSH. Let me go and disable the Windows firewall to avoid any kind of traffic block and other things. Okay, but anyways, we are able to take RDP, so there is no problem with the connections. Maybe if you are trying to ping, it might not allow because the Windows firewall will block ICMP and some traffic by default.
So by default, RDP and SSH will be enabled on all the instances, right?
Yeah, at the security group level. So I'm referring to the Windows Defender firewall.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so yeah. Sorry, by mistake I closed the other one. Okay, it's all turned off. Okay, now I can just okay, I'm on the okay, let me just check that IP config better instead of host name. Okay, I'm on the machine 10.0.0, sorry, 10.0.1.195. And I'm trying to ping the google.com. See, I'm able to access the internet from the machine in the private subnet, even though this machine does not have any public IP address. If you look at the private VM, it does not have public IP address, but it is able to connect to the internet using the NAT gateway. So that is how you will connect, download patches. You can go and update the VM. You can go and download the packages or whatever, right? So that's the way we generally allow the backend machines to connect to the internet outbound only. So you will be able to only access outbound. You will not be able to access this machine from internet because it does not have any public IP address attached directly. Okay, so are you clear with the NAT gateway concept? So NAT gateway allows you to connect from here to internet through the NAT gateway, and also you get all the traffic monitored, the flow logs monitored on the NAT gateway. So you will be able to analyze what kind of traffic went and came back. You can also create your own NAT instance, and you can also use that. See, for example, instead of using the NAT gateway, you can go to the EC2 instance here, and you can go and launch an instance. This is chargeable, okay? If you are practicing and if you don't want to incur charges, you can ignore this, okay? I'm just showing you how to do that. You can go and create a NAT gateway, NAT instance, and you can select the Raj VPC, and you have to create it on the public subnet. Public subnet. This is very important. Okay, and you need to have a public IP for the NAT instance. Okay, you have to create it on the public subnet, and it should have a public IP address. And you can allow access on the internet, like you can just give 22 access on the particular machine. And okay, so this is fine. Okay, it is asking me whether I want to select any other type of volume. Okay, I can select the Mumbai March 2022 and I can launch the instance. See, once after the NAT instance is launched, you will get a launch NAT instance ID. So now you can just go and check this one. Okay, so if you go here, I can just do a continuous ping here. Okay, let's minimize this. Let me go to the VPC. I'll go to the route table. I'll go and check the Raj private route table. So this is my route for the, okay, this is the public route. Okay, let's name that properly. Raj public route table 01. So the other one is the private route, right? This is the private route. I'll name this as Raj private route table 01. See, all these things definitely need a lot of practice. Okay, you guys have to practice it. So instead of NAT gateway, I'm going to delete this and I'm going to give the NAT instance ID. Okay, and I'm going to save this. So it will, instead of going through the NAT gateway, now the traffic will be directed through the NAT instance. And one more important thing that many of us will miss is the NAT instance checklist. See, NAT instance is a kind of NAT virtual router now, right? It has to send the traffic on behalf of multiple machine. If the internet gateway or if the router on the internet, if it checks that the traffic is coming from some other machine and not from this machine, it will block the traffic. If you want to overcome that challenge, so Amazon has given you a beautiful option. You can select this, go to the actions under the networking. You can mention, I don't want to verify the source destination. So from where exactly the packet is originating, because now after this machine is acting as a NAT instance, many machines will be sending the traffic via this machine to the internet. So if I'm checking whether the traffic is really originating from this machine only, it will stop blocking. So I don't want that check to happen. I'm going to stop the source destination check and I want to save that. Okay, you have to do this carefully. You have to enable this. Without that, it will not work. Okay, this is RajNat instance. You can also create your own solution also. Okay, instead of going with NAT gateway is a little costlier, and you can also create your own NAT instance, and you will be able to log in, check what are the different things happening, and so on. So if I go and see here, okay, still it's going on. Maybe let's cancel it and let's try to. Maybe it's already online. Okay, let's go and check here. Okay, so I'm not able to close that. See, the previous session is actually still having a catch and it is going through the DNS. So now the packet is timing out, okay, on that machine. Until that NAT gateway is coming up, it will be having timed out. So you can either have NAT gateway or NAT instance. NAT gateway is a managed solution from Amazon. You can directly use that without any additional configuration, but you can also have your own instances, which you can create it as an EC2 instance and you can do it. Okay, this is a physical appliance with the virtual router concept. This is a EC2 instance managed by the customer fully. You can add any additional roles, features on that machine, and you can use it as a multi-purpose thing also. You can also use this NAT instance as a jump server also. Some organization will allow access through the NAT instance. Okay, you can add that as a Bastion role, or you can use that as a jump server and so on. So any questions on these two concepts, NAT gateway and NAT instance?
So the speed on this would be like whatever you have, right?
Sorry?
I mean the bandwidth.
Yeah, the
Because you
charges will
said
be for
bandwidth.
the charges will be like charges of a VM, charges for the NAT instance.
Okay, normal, not normal
Yeah,
VM.
NAT instance charges, correct. And also the data transfer out from that. If you are sending traffic to the internet, that data is transferring outside of the region, right? So that also will be,
Okay.
that is applicable for both the cases. Okay, here it will be
Okay.
a kind of fully managed service cost. Here it will be only the cost of the EC2 instance. It is very, very cheaper. You can deploy your own solution. If some organization want to deploy the solution and use it multi-purpose, see, for example, you can create one EC2 instance and use it as a NAT. You can use it as a port forwarding machine. You can use it as a Bastion. You can also add additional SMTP role or whatever, because it is a Linux machine only, right? You can add additional role. It can be used as a multi-purpose system. But the more you add roles and features on the same system, it is becoming a single point of failure. You might have to go and create multiple systems and use some kind of clustering or script to kind of uh, jump between one server and another server. Okay, go ahead with the other question. Someone also started talking. Your audio is very low, Pandian. Maybe you can try and come closer to your.
Sorry, my mic.
Yeah,
Yeah, now it will be good, right?
yeah, it is good. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So everything goes through the NAT gateway, right? So
Mhm.
we make it as a for security or whatever it is. Yeah,
Correct.
this is good. Okay. So for
Yeah.
example, so now I am trying to access my web server or my DB server
Mhm.
through the NAT
Mhm.
gateway.
Okay.
So those IP will be visible or what for the
See,
web server? I
for
mean web IP
from
or
yeah,
DB server IP.
yeah, from web actually you need not go through the NAT gateway. From web to app, it will go directly through the local route table. It is not going through the internet route. See, there are two route entries here, right? In your route table, if you look at here, there are two entries. Okay, so first entry is the local route entry for anything within this 10.0.0 range. Either it is the uh, public range or the private range, all those communication will happen directly. Okay, it will not go through the NAT gateway. Only the connection to the internet will go through the internet gateway or the NAT gateway. So so the private connections will happen through the local route gateway. It will not go through the NAT gateway or internet gateway. It is local. It's the local route table. All the communication within web and app or SMTP server and app or the jump server and app and database server, it will happen through the local network. It will not go through the NAT or internet gateway.
Mhm. So in
Yeah.
case it goes like on public. So for example, from
Mhm.
internet to NAT to my web app. I mean a web
Mhm.
server. Then that time my IP will be exposed or what is
See,
the mechanism?
this is only for outbound connections only. That is what the purpose of the NAT gateway, right? It doesn't allow you inbound. That is what we told, right? It prevents inbound connection. You will not be able to connect through the NAT gateway or NAT instance to the inside. Okay, it only allows outbound connections only internet gateway will give you outbound and inbound connectivity, but that too, it's a managed router. You will not be able to control or change anything there. So NAT gateway is only for, see, for example, if you have a machine, you want to download patches, you want to upgrade the software, or if you want to connect to some internet site, then you can allow the app server and database server just to connect to the internet, only for outgoing connection. That's why I was showing you connectivity to the Google and the internet site. Okay, it's only for outbound internet connection, not for incoming connection. So there will not be any connection that will be allowed inside, because this has the important mission critical data, right? The app server, database
Correct.
server are having data. So you don't want to have connection inbound. That's the reason you are just allowing access outbound only. That is the primary purpose of NAT instance. Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Actually, then where is the proxy servers will fix on this, Stalin?
Proxy server will be lying on the public subnet. You will create a split proxy server or different server. Even this is currently acting as a proxy only now. So all the machines are
The
going
NAT.
through a NAT gateway. NAT gateway is currently acting as a proxy, but without any filtering. But if you want to filter some websites or URL or whatever, you can go and create a split proxy server, or you can go and create a AWS firewall solution. There is a solution called AWS firewall solution that will be deployed, which can allow you to access only specific websites or specific IP address. Those things can be filtered here. You can do a URL whitelisting and filtering on AWS firewall, or you can have your own split proxy server to do a filtering. You can also have a Windows ISA server also, and that will be deployed on the public subnet.
Okay.
So these are all.
So NAT is only for outbound, right? So I won't make outbound. Okay.
Yeah,
I want to
only
make
for
my
outbound. Yeah.
memory. Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah,
Okay.
and this is the kind of transparent proxy, meaning it is not disturbing you anything, or it is not restricting you anything. You can connect to any URL or any outbound internet sites. These are all transparent proxy systems, meaning there is no restriction in terms of which URL you want to use, there is no restriction at all. You can directly go and access all the website. But if you want to have some URL web whitelisting and all those things, you can have your own NAT instance, or you can have your own split proxy server or AWS firewall to filter the traffic, what traffic should be allowed, which website should be allowed, and all those things.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. Thanks.
Sure. Okay. Any other question from anyone? That's a good question. Okay. So yeah, we have to get things clarified. Only then you will be clear. Otherwise, these doubts will remain forever. Okay. So let's go and check this. Okay. Now let's talk about the other important thing, which is called security group.